Google's beginning to block third-party cookies in Chrome. Apple's removed tracking parameters in ad links, and Meta's rolling out free versions of their platforms. It's a troubling time for businesses and marketers who are trying to leverage paid ads to drive targeted audiences to their website. When a retargeted ad, an ad specifically targeted to someone who you know has already visited your site, tends to convert at 10 times the rate of typical display ads. Suddenly losing access to that kind of audience can be devastating to advertisers. Is this the end of retargeting ads? How should businesses go about collecting and leveraging their own data, that first-party data, going forward? That's what we're covering in today's episode of The MarTech Show.
The past is gone. Now's the future.
This is The MarTech Show, exploring today's marketing technology solutions. Social media, artificial intelligence, augmented reality.
Now's the future.
Content, SEO, email, analytics, listening, advertising, and more. I'm your host, Mike Allton, and I'm joined by agency owner and technology futurist Robin Dimond. Each episode explores the latest developments in marketing technology and shares new solutions and innovative approaches that you need to know about to grow your business today. And now, the rest of today's episodes. Welcome back to the MarTech Show, where Robin and I get to dish on what's shiny and new in the MarTech space, then do a deep dive into a specific platform or solution that can help you in your business today. Now, Robin's at an event this week and couldn't be here today, but we've got some fun news out of Silicon Valley. The announcement that every social media manager and marketing agency just loves to hear: there's a new social network to learn, AirChat. It marries the feed aspect of Twitter with the audio-first format of Clubhouse, a daunting combo, according to Wired. What's interesting about the experience is that you create content by recording voice notes, which are instantly and automatically posted and shared with transcripts and played back at 2x speed. One of the challenges that Clubhouse and similar audio-first platforms or features have faced is that not everyone wants to talk or hear audio 100% of the time. In fact, the users who are interested in that medium are in the minority. Even platforms that relied on short-form video for messaging, like Volley, struggled to break out of that constraint. So the question is, will having an immediate and automatic transcript be enough for the internet's mainstream lurkers to bite and hang on? Only time will tell. But for now, the network is invite only, so marketers can relax. You don't need to create an AirChat marketing strategy just yet. However, where marketers today do need to come up with a strategy is how to deal with the changes being imposed by Google, Meta, and others. It's almost lights out for third-party cookies, yet only 34% of brands have a strategy to accommodate the changes. And I get it. While a first-party data strategy shift is logical and ideal, it's not like you're just flipping the switch from 3 to 1. Transitioning to first-party cookies and other ways of collecting first-party data faces plenty of complications, which we'll dive into today. Learning about the challenges you'll face and knowing how to proactively combat them set your organization's first-party data strategy up for success, which is exactly what Larry Kim's going to talk to us about. Larry founded WordStream, a PPC marketing company which was acquired by USA Today in 2018. He went on to build a new platform that's all about customer data solutions, Customers.ai. Larry is a guest lecturer at MIT, Harvard, and Boston University, and a contributor to CNBC and Inc. magazine, as well as a frequent speaker at marketing conferences, helping businesses and audiences understand the power and potential of their data. Hey, Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So glad to see you. Let's dive in and let's start by framing the problem. What exactly did Google and Meta change recently? How has that impacted marketers and social media advertising?
Sure. The big change, it's not really a big change. It's more like a big change over the last four years, is the phasing out of third-party cookies. So it started with like Firefox, back in 2019, and then the first shoe to drop was iOS 14, where they kind of dropped third-party cookies, or those pop-ups that say like, do you want to allow this app to track you? They made it like an opt-in rather than an opt-out, and so that meant that like about half of the cookies no longer worked. And then the final shoe to drop is Chrome right now. They've shut off about 30 million browsers of cookies, third-party cookies, in January, and they expect that to get to 100% of their user base by end of the quarter here. In terms of who that impacts, and as far as marketers are concerned, I think it primarily impacts Facebook ads and Google ads. So the Facebook ad pixel and the Google ad pixel, they're on tens of millions of websites. And that is a very important like homing beacon that is used by both Google and Facebook ads to sort of drive the results that we know and love in terms of remarketing and in terms of behavioral and interest-based targeting. So this is a big change, and I don't think marketers fully understand or appreciate like the magnitude of what's happening here.
I know for a fact they don't. I know I haven't. This hasn't been an area of my focus. So that's why you're here to help us. Why is first party data just so important? How does that improve conversions?
Okay, so taking a step back, third-party data is like leased information from a third party. So like if you wanted to, advertise, get your ads in front of like people who own dogs or love dogs or whatever, like you could go on an ad network like Facebook ads, type in those demographics, interests, and behaviors that you were interested in, and you could generate that kind of engagement using third-party data. And that was the data that Google and Facebook were using to the reason why it's being dumped is because it was abused. So Facebook and Google, you put that Facebook ad pixel or Google ad pixel on your website, and what you might have not realized is that those pixels were then phoning home every bit of information from your website, in terms of like every visitor, what they were doing, their identity, etc. And that was then being leased out to tens of millions of advertisers. Okay, and so that's third party data when you're kind of leasing other people's information through an intermediary. First party data is it's basically your competitive advantage, your strategic competitive advantage. It's the people who are visiting your website. It's the data that they provide. It's the actions and intent that they bring to the table. That's your information. You own it. And that is like pretty much the core, data asset for marketers to, execute on various marketing campaigns. In terms of how does that improve conversions? Well, I mean, it's kind of should be hopefully obvious. Like the more you know about the types of people, the more that you know about the visitors to your site, the more likely you are able to either qualify or disqualify them, as well as to get them in front of offers or products and services that are more likely to resonate to those particular individuals. So hopefully that kind of gives you the background there.
Yeah, so it sounds like ideally we would have systems in place that are not only collecting this data but reviewing it and automating certain processes to best convert those folks who meet certain criteria. But for businesses who are just kind of sorting this out, maybe they don't have big budgets, are there alternatives that marketers can turn to today to explore without having to necessarily pay for a tool or a bunch of custom development? What are the challenges with some of these options?
Sure. It's kind of the business that we're in right now. Like my business, Customers.ai, we have a first party data pixel that customers can put on that businesses can put on their business websites, like e-commerce stores or B2B sites. Like you can just put a pixel on your website, and this can provide similar identity resolution and remarketing capabilities that the Facebook and Google ad pixels were able to execute on your behalf, but in a first party context rather than a third party context. So the difference here is, and this is kind of nuanced, the Facebook and Google ad pixels, like they could identify 30, 40, 50% of website visitors. Why? Because using the power of third party cookies, there was a good chance that people were logged into Facebook or Gmail, and so they had an identifier on in your cookie stash there. Okay, so that was like a free way of like getting all this access to data. Like you could well, it's not free. It was you have to pay for the ads, but you didn't have to pay for the pixel. And the way they were monetizing it was they were then leasing out your data to other advertisers. So the alternative, if you were to rethink that scenario, like there certainly are benefits in that equation, like being able to identify people that haven't filled out forms on your website just yet, and to be able to kind of have a second chance to get your messaging in front of them through ads and stuff like that, that's certainly valuable for marketers. Like, in fact, it's one of the most effective way of doing advertising is remarketing. But the problem is, like, how do you do that in a first party context? And the answer is there's a new class of products. Customers.ai is one of them, but there's other in the market as well of first party data pixels. And you put these on your website, and it tells you everything about the people who are visiting your website, like their name, last name, emails, phone numbers, mailing addresses, like whatever you need to know. Like, these pixels can kind of provide enrichment to the first party website data that you're generating, and then that is your data. So, like, how you use that data to power email campaigns or ad campaigns, like, it's not being like resold into some gigantic 20 million advertiser network, which kind of is how this is compliant. And this is it's an industry shift where, because of those use cases that we were used to, like remarketing, did rely on third-party ad pixels, and that Google and Facebook are not rolling out like replacement identifiers, that the alternative is to explore these first-party data pixels like Customers.ai and others. Does that make sense?
Right. So just to kind of restate it, to make sure I'm clear and everybody watching. So due to privacy concerns, Google, Facebook, and others, they're no longer going to identify visitors to our websites, which would have previously allowed us to advertise to those visitors once they go back on those other platforms. Someone comes to us from Facebook, our website recognizes them due to the Facebook pixel. We can then advertise to them on Facebook.com. We're not going to be able to do that anymore. The only alternative, it sounds like, is to bump up our investment in first-party data, which means collecting information ourselves or using tools like Customers.ai, which we're going to get into in a second, to help us identify those people, which we could then advertise to or email market to in other ways. Google Analytics, Google Search Console, zero help whatsoever. Is that right?
Yeah, they're moving away from individual tracking and more about like sampling and estimated conversions and stuff like this. The way to do this going forward is to really bulk up on your first party data collection and building up systems and processes to automate the processing and usage of that data in various marketing campaigns. So, how history kind of repeats itself, Mike. Just think back, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, like in the 90s, the companies that were kicking ass in marketing were the companies that had a lot of first party data, like the Walmarts, or the Harrods Entertainment, or like big data companies. Over the last, say 2010 to 2020, like that was the golden age of marketers, where like Facebook and Google were trying to kill each other by providing tons and tons of free data. Not free, but like free if you use their ad platforms, and free analytics capabilities, to battle to provide the best possible ROI. And then in the last few years, it's kind of pendulum swung back the other way, where for whatever reasons, Google and Facebook are no longer feeling the pressure to continue that battle for the best data and the best analytics, and are content to allow third party cookies to disappear. And the advantage goes back to the types of companies who are able to stockpile and act on tons of first party data. You following me here?
Absolutely. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's driven a lot by GDPR and other privacy legislation, specifically coming out of the EU. But let's talk about your tool. Let's talk about Customers.ai. Share with us a little bit more specifically about what your solution does and how it helps marketers in these situations.
Sure. Again, this is a first party data pixel that you put on your website. And what it does is that it identifies a significant fraction, say 25% of your anonymous visitors. Now, remember, even in the heyday, the golden era of Facebook and Google remarketing, those products could only identify, 45% of website visitors. It was never 100%, Mike. So these products can kind of figure out, who's visiting your website. This is not a third party thing where you're just getting a random list of prospects from some guy in a van down by the river. These are your like Zoom Info or Apollo, where you just get a list of like CMOs or something. That's third party data. This is your data. This is your website data, like through your inbound social or inbound email or inbound SEO content marketing efforts, your audience, and we are providing additional data points on your audience, and we allow you then to stockpile it in an audience manager. And an audience manager is just like a data warehouse of like all of the people who have visited your website, as well as all of the interactions and data that we have on those people. So if you're doing marketing, there's two important things in your target buyer. There's qualifications and intent. So like qualifications, is this the right type of person who is qualified to buy the products or services that we are selling? And that could be demographics, either B2B or B2C demographics, like, are they married? Do they own a house? Do they live in the right geography? Do they have kids? What's their net worth? There's hundreds of these various B2C type demographic data points that you would never put on a form fill, because can you imagine like filling out an order form or a website submission form that had 1,000 fields? No one would fill that out. So all you need to do is get the email, or like we'll provide you the rest of the information. Like this works for B2B as well. Like we have all the job titles and company size and revenue and whatever. So we're able to enrich that information. The other thing that we can do is that we can score the intent of those website visitors. So the way we do this is we just track everything they do on your website, which is exactly what the Google and Facebook pixels used to be doing, except that they were then subleasing that data out to 10 million advertisers. You see what I'm saying? So we can track like the clicks, the scroll depth, what URLs they clicked on, or what emails that you sent that they opened, repeat visitors, like people who spent more than 5 minutes on the site cumulatively. Like we can measure the intent, like all these data signals. This is in a first party context. Like we're not going to give you any data of anyone else, and you don't have to worry about your data going out to some farm. This is first party data, and then using the qualifications intent, you can create audience segmentations. Audience segmentations are like, just to give you a simple example, maybe it's people who are ready to buy. And for those people, let's just send them a coupon code with like a buy now, so that create that audience segmentation and direct them to an action like sending an email. Other people, you might determine that they're not quite ready to buy, and so instead of sending them an email, you might take that audience data and send it to, say, a TikTok ad or a LinkedIn ad or a Facebook ad or a Google ad. So there's different actions and different audiences. And this all comes together in a first party kind of data pixel / audience manager. Are you following me here?
100%. Thank you very much for sharing that, because it really helped illustrate for me in my mind, if I can identify like 6 key pieces of content that already exist on my website, and I know that if somebody's excuse me, consuming that content, that's a clear intent that they're ready to purchase my solution. So that could be fed into Customers.ai and segment that audience that way.
You would specify the key high value URLs like pricing or
right,
like a comparative analysis chart or something, and then you can do whatever action you want. It could be a Slack message to a BDR team. It could be dumping that data and flagging it in Salesforce. There's different actions, and this is all dynamic, Mike. So like as soon as it happens, it falls into there's automations that gets created. As soon as that person kind of makes it him or herself expresses themselves through the actions that we require, then it can automatically do the follow-up, either emails or Slack messages or sending a postcard or sending a voicemail, sending a text message. All these different types of actions are automatable, and I think it's very exciting.
Yeah. So, and speaking of automated, you've got a lot of integrations, right, that would handle all of these kinds of actions we're talking about?
Yes, we're not.
How that works?
We have some rudimentary, emailing and texting tools in our platform because those are such simple use cases. But there's really an unlimited number of things that a business might want to do with customer information. And so to facilitate this, rather than trying to build for all of those different use cases, we just provide connectors and integrations to the platforms that already provide those types of follow-up actions. As an example, like we can, through Zapier or through native integrations, send this data through to, very popular CRMs or ESPs, like email service providers, like Klaviyo or SendLane or MailChimp or HubSpot, or CRMs like Salesforce, Shopify. Shopify is more like an e-commerce CRM than a B2B. And there's so many other ways to make use of this data. Like there's like AI handwritten postcards. Like they're not really handwritten. There's like a robot that kind of moves the pen and makes it look like it's handwritten. So like you could use the data that you have on Mike Allton, like the mailing address, like all your job title, interests. We could have a generative AI come up with an interesting message, customize it based on your demographics, and zap that data over to a postcard provider that then sends up some kind of an automated follow-up offer through the mail. Like just, there's of course, another popular integration is with ad platforms. So taking the data and sending that data back to audience managers so that you can power remarketing type motions. But it's kind of like marketing, like it's the golden age of 2018 again. Before everybody started losing visibility into these important data sets. But I'm excited to say that it's being done in a compliant first party way. It's not like the reason why Google and Facebook got shut down and why these browsers were blocking all this stuff is because what they were doing was like they weren't disclosing it, and they were just taking as soon as you put that Facebook pixel on your website, you were sending all that information to their ad networks, and that was not disclosed and not expected. And I think this is much more compliant. You can just clearly disclose on your website that you use cookies and trackers, and I think that's not an unreasonable expectation for the companies that you're interested in to engage with you. Where it got a little confusing was like all these companies that you weren't engaging with were reaching out to you, and I think that was problematic.
Speaking of Google and cookies, we've got this question from Dell. Yes, so the Customers.ai product doesn't use the cookie technology to match and identify the data?
No, we don't use any third-party cookies because otherwise, how would this product work? We've come up with a different way. I mean, we probably don't have enough time to explain how this works, but it uses a lot of data analysis and information to compute that. A simple example, Mike, that I'm sure everyone is familiar with is location enrichment. Okay. So like even in products like Google Analytics, if you drill down to people, like it'll tell you like the city, state, country, sometimes it'll even give you longitude and latitude. Okay. So like that's an example of first party data enrichment. All right. So like somehow like there's a way to map IP addresses to physical addresses using these databases, and using that information, you can augment the data that you have, the IP address of the visitor, with the data that you didn't have, like the location of the browser. You see what I'm saying? And so we're kind of just extending on that modality of data enrichment to be able to fill in more gaps. Got it.
Love it. So yeah, another question from our live audience, Sarah. She's wondering how this impacts Facebook and Google lookalike audiences. I know you mentioned, and I appreciate that, your tool can automatically update the target audiences that we're using on, say, Facebook. So you might have an ad set that's specifically targeting folks who went to the pricing page of your website but didn't do something. So we're going to market to them in that way. What about lookalike audiences?
So first of all, it's my spiel on lookalike audiences is that it's kind of the redheaded stepchild of Facebook ad targeting. Okay, right? Because for as long as I've been doing Facebook marketing, since like I'm dating myself, it's like 2008, 2009.
A long time.
they've had similar audiences, but it was like kind of buried. It was in the audience manager. You had to then create a clone of a first party audience file that you upload, and then from there you could create a similar audience. Okay, so like this thing has been around. Similar audience has been around forever. It's just like viewed as the kind of data targeting that you use if you don't have audience data. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
Like the primary way that you should do this is have good data. Now, a lot of times you either don't have that data or you don't have enough of it. Okay. And that's where, similar audiences comes in. My beef with similar audiences is that the audience sizes that could get computed by Facebook and Google are enormous. Like if you're doing advertising in the United States of America, the smallest audience segmentation that you can generate is 3.3 million people. Okay, that's the smallest size. So like think of like a product like Agorapulse or Customers.ai. Do we really think, I mean, these are great products, but like do we really think that the audience for these products in the United States of America is 3.3 million people? It's probably a bit of a, it's a little big, is my thinking. And even if it was that big, like why not just segment the audience into smaller groups of like 100,000 each, and then provide more targeted messaging to each of those 100,000 rather than giving all 3 million the same message. So like what I'm trying to say, this is all to say that using first party data and products like Customers.ai, it means you don't have to go back to the redheaded stepchild of ad targeting, which is similar audiences, that you should have more first party data to use to target people who really are interested in your products and services. Now, you could have enormous ad budgets, and maybe the amount of money you want to spend on ads surpasses the size and extent of your first party audiences, in which case you're still better off, because what you're doing is you're providing more data to the Facebook and Google algorithms to compute the similar audiences. So they're more likely to be correct than had you asked for the similar audience and provided a third of the amount of data.
Makes complete sense. Awesome. Del, Sarah, thank you for those questions. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Larry Kim about how things are changing for marketers and agencies when it comes to first-party data and tracking. Now, here to share her story of how she's using Agorapulse to manage and track all of her clients' social media activity is agency owner Ann Papalizio.
I am Ann Papalizio, and I am the owner of Social Web. We're a boutique digital marketing agency specializing in social media, Facebook advertising, and organic social media. I chose Agorapulse for a few key reasons. I think the primary reason was the robustness of their reporting and the analytics that they have. It's a really great platform for agencies. It makes it really easy to manage a team that's doing multiple layers of scheduling, approval. It's a simple tool to use, but gives me really, really, really robust information that actually helps me develop better strategies for my clients and better plans of action. I've used Hootsuite, I've used Sprout Social. I'm much happier with the functionality and the reporting of Agorapulse.
So we touched on, I know, some of the data that Customers.ai is going to be able to provide us about the people that are visiting our website. Is there any other particular piece of data that you haven't mentioned that we should talk about, that we're going to learn about these people who are visiting the site?
I would just say that it's better to, it's a ton of data. And the thing about data is you never know when you're going to need that data. Like say you're, collecting email addresses, and later on a year from now, you decide like, let's try, postcards or something like this. It's actually very hard to go back in time and ask people for the data, in hindsight, and so we're providing, a significant amount of data enrichment. Some might wonder like, why so many data points? Like, don't I only need like one or two things? And the answer is like, you never know. And it doesn't cost any extra. So like, it just kind of future proofing the first party data that you're collecting, if that makes sense. And then, but yeah, it's mostly related to the identity as well as the intent of these users. There is one thing I could add to that, which is that intent signal is not a static signal; it's ongoing. So if somebody becomes a repeat visitor, well, then you could have a repeat visitor segment. And then that person who, was not previously in the repeat visitor segment would then get promoted into that repeat visitor segment. So like, maybe it's a workflow where you say like, he just visited my blog, not ready to start seriously emailing and sending them a hard sell, push into ads. When that person clicks on an ad, we would then register that increase in intent as they click on an ad, and we can look at the UTMs and tell you which one it was, and B, they would now be kind of prove themselves as a repeat visitor. So like what we're talking about here is like, believe it or not, this was all the data that the Facebook and Google was sending back, like with those Google Pixels through the third party cookies and the ad script, but they would never show that to you. Okay, yeah. Like it was all a black box. And what we're saying is like, it's not that complicated. Like you can kind of use an audience manager to create these different segmentations, but it's your data now, and you own it.
Yeah, those are two really important points. I just want to underscore first that those segments, particularly the intent segment, will automatically update over time, because we definitely want people coming back to the site, coming to different events like webinars, blog posts, all those sorts of things. And then I love the point you made about buttressing against the future, so to speak, because you mentioned a while ago, no one's going to want a 1,000 form ad on their, or a form on their website, because no one's going to fill out that form. But a more realistic example is most people, they try to reduce the number of questions that we're asking on our forms, because good marketers know the fewer questions we ask, the higher conversion rate for those forms are going to be. I've been doing, to your point, email marketing for over a decade. My early email forms only asked for emails. So I don't even have the first name of the people that signed up for my list, 5-10 years ago. I can't address them by first name when I'm trying to personalize content. If I was using Customers.ai, all that data would be enriched, and we'd be able to speak to those folks personally and dynamically. Fantastic. So we've talked a little bit.
Just taking that one example one step further, another crazy strategy that this could enable, and we have people doing this, is in those newsletter capture campaigns, like perhaps you're running ads to like conversion campaigns on Facebook or Google, you could change the campaign objective to being a less competitive, lower cost objective, like traffic campaigns. That's significantly lower cost. And then because we have the capabilities of just passively IDing the visitors, and then not requiring a hard form fill, that's kind of like going a step further. Like you were saying, I'm going to reduce the number of form fields. I'm saying like, maybe you don't even need the form field. like maybe it's just locking in the demographics that you care about in these ad campaigns, and figuring it out like in the back end. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
No, you're right. Because to your point, if you've already identified that individual, maybe they're still part of this mass, but yeah, you know who they are to an extent. You don't have to necessarily make them fill out a form. I want to talk about GDPR and privacy specifically for just a moment, because I want to make crystal clear to everybody, what is the impact, what is the concern, what is the risk, if any, from a privacy or GDPR perspective?
So, Mike, if you open up a browser and you go to lemonde.fr, so this is in privacy fanatic, France, which is ground zero for stuff like, GDPR and all these other privacy things. I don't know if you're able to edit this later, but like you will see that the first thing that comes up on the screen, it says like Le Monde.France uses marketing cookies and tracking cookies, and and we use this to personalize your marketing and to augment our marketing partners. And if you look at the scripts that they're running, it's what I'm trying to get at here is that the antidote for privacy concerns is disclosure. What they didn't like about Google, there it is. So maybe I see that it says we use cookies, similar technologies during your visit to the site in order to gather information, including personal data such as your IP address, unique identifiers. Navigational data is like a dumping ground for saying all the click data, all the URLs, all the repeat visitor data, geolocation data. So like this is not even required. Like you don't have to put the pop-up in your face, okay? But because these are like the privacy zealots from ground zero of France, they're putting they're blacking out the screen. You can't even see anything, and they're putting it up there. Okay. So without having to go with an hour lecture on privacy law and stuff like this, the antidote of privacy concerns is providing complete transparency in terms of like what data is being collected and how it's being used. And I am absolutely not advocating that you secretly do things, like reselling data, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is your first party data. This is your, clearly disclose in your terms of use, in your website privacy policy. If you wish, you can even force a pop-up to accept those terms of use that you're setting. And that's actually not even required. What's required is that you disclose it somewhere. And then beyond that, we want to make it as easy as possible to allow customers to opt out of, such a data collection. And so we've implemented incredibly robust ways to, allow the user to opt out of this stuff, like with one click, not like sending them to a thing that tries to trick you with a confusing user interface, and you're like, what did I just do? Did I just sign up for 5 more newsletters, or did I just unsubscribe from our newsletter? like all these, like you just have to you do it in an above board way. GDPR is not a suicide pact. I mean, it's just kind of fighting against the abuses of big tech companies like Google and Facebook, which were doing like incredibly terrible things.
100%. So I just got one more question for you there. I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk specifically to marketing agencies. These agencies, they're representing multiple customers, managing their social media, their website, their SEO, their content strategy, their paid strategies, and so on. How is a tool like Customers.ai great for agencies specifically?
Customers.ai and having a first-party data pixel is incredible leverage across multiple channels of marketing. It's generally the case that these agencies will not just do, like, this isn't like 20 years ago where Facebook was such a new thing that you could make a business off of doing one like siloed channel. It's all multi-channel, and all of those channels like email marketing, Facebook, Google Ads, content marketing, SEO. Guess what, Mike? They all lead back to where? The website, right? And so identity capabilities is not just a way of generating more ROI for your clients. It's a spectacular way, but it's also a way of proving your value, because you could say, like, see that customer that you just signed up? This was the customer journey. Like, we first saw them on Pinterest, then they came like from our spring catalog campaign, and then we added them to our Google ad remarketing thing, and they clicked on that, and then we promoted them into the email flow, and they got 10 emails, and then they bought the thing. So like, it allows agencies to unlock significant ROI across all the channels where third-party cookies or identity. It's not limit. The ads certainly benefit because the loss of remarketing use cases, but it's not like the other channels like social media or SEO don't benefit from identity resolution. It's like, if you're working so hard, let's take SEO for example. Like, if you're working so hard to drive traffic to these websites, like, wouldn't it be like a nice cherry on top if we could just tell them who those people were? Wouldn't that be like a more valuable offering? And so we do have agency programs similar to Agora Pulse. Like, we do sign up, hundreds of customers a month, and about a third of them don't have agency support. And so what we do is we actually refer those customers out to the agency partners that we have, who have experience in configuring and supporting our product and technology. So there's plenty of opportunities to partner. Like, you're probably like a Klaviyo partner or a HubSpot partner, like, and we're in business for doing that as well. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Larry, because this has been an incredibly enlightening interview for me personally. This is, like I said at the outset, this is not a topic that I knew a lot about going into it. I often say that I'm picking the brains of experts in the industry. That was definitely the case here. So thank you for sharing that with me and the rest of us that are watching. For those who want to learn more about you or about Customers.ai, where should they go?
I'm active on Twitter, LinkedIn, or you can just email me, Larry Kim at Customers.ai. We'd love to connect.
Fantastic. That's all we've got for today, friends. But don't forget to join the after show discussion within the Social Pulse community on Facebook, where you can learn more about today's guest, Larry Kim, and continue the conversation with other attendees. Until next time, thank you for listening to another episode of the MarTech Show, hosted by Robin Dimond and Mike Allton, powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you want to make sure you're part of our audience during live weekly broadcasts, take a look at our calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar, or click the subscribe button in your email once you register for any of these events. Is there a particular tool or topic you'd like to see us talk about? Or perhaps you think your solution should be featured? Email me at mike@agorapulse.com.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.